Hello students, let's start our next chapter, semiconductors and devices. So let's start our first topic, crystalline and amorphous solids. But let me give you a little introduction regarding this particular chapter, need of studying this. So after the discovery of the electron, which is a landmark in physics, that led to a great technological advances, you can call like. So whatever the present day instant communication we are actually having with the entire world, it is because of the result of the various uses of these electrons only. Okay, and remember, right, of course regarding the properties and all we have already studied, but now we can maintain or we can use this electron in various other different aspects too. Okay, which means the variation in the speed of the electron, which means this high speed makes its instant action possible. So instant actions, different various actions can be used for this purpose. So any device whose action is based on the controlled flow of electrons through it is called as an electronic device. So whenever there is a controlled flow of electrons through that particular device, we can call it like an electronic device. Okay, and of course the branch of the physics which deals with that is nothing but electronics, and the devices which are of this electronic devices are like basic building blocks for all the electronic circuits. Okay, so now in that we are going to discuss about those solid state electronic devices. Now let's start from the basic of considering, or you can call like solids, which can be broadly classified into two categories. The first thing is crystalline and the second one is amorphous. Crystalline, coming to that, these are the atoms or the molecules which are arranged in a definite and a regular way throughout the body of the crystal and possess a definite external geometrical shape. Example, sugar, wood, quartz, etc. So these materials will have a definite geometrical shape. While coming to the amorphous, these are the solids which are nothing but amorphous solids are those in which atoms or molecules are arranged in an irregular manner. While here it is regular, while in the case of amorphous it is irregular manner, and they do not have any definite geometrical shape. And the examples are glass, rubber, sulfur, etc. All this. Lot of different kinds of the forms we have, right, for the sulfur. That was okay. Right. Coming to the next one, crystalline solids are anisotropic. Anisotropic refers to the physical properties like conductivity, refractive index, velocity of sound, which they will depend on the direction. That means they have different values in different directions. They have different values in different directions. Clear? Right. Coming to the amorphous solids are isotropic. That means they have same values in different directions. Okay. Which means the physical properties whatever we have discussed earlier, which is like all this refractive index, conductivity, velocity of sound, all this will be in the case of amorphous. They have same physical properties in all directions, value will be same. Coming to the next one, crystalline solids possess uniform chemical composition. Uniform chemical composition, that means bonds between all the atoms or molecules are of equal strength. So if let's say suppose there are n atoms, or let's say suppose 10 atoms, like imagine just for a number, the bonding between all these 10 atoms is same and equal with having equal strengths, and that is what we call it as uniform chemical composition. While in the case of amorphous solids do not possess uniform chemical composition, obviously, which means bonds between all these atoms and molecules are not of equal strengths. So different strengths refers to, and relating with that you can have the continuation point or as a different point. Crystalline solids have sharp melting point, while amorphous have do not have a sharp melting point. Let's look about this melting point now. What we call a melting point, which means as the crystalline solids on heating, when we heat them, all the bonds get ruptured suddenly because they are all having the same kind of energy and same sort of strength, right? So all these bonds will get ruptured suddenly at a fixed point, and due to this change of the state from solid to liquid occurs suddenly. So from solid to, obviously the next was liquid and then it was gas. So from solid to liquid, this conversion will be at a particular point, and that was sudden. While in the case of amorphous solids, they do not have a sharp melting point, because that means when we heat, the weaker bonds will get ruptured first and the stronger ones will be ruptured later, and due to this the change of state does not occur at a fixed temperature. As I told you already, they do not have uniform chemical composition. The bonding in the bonds, whatever the bonds which are weaker, they will break first, and the which are strong, they will continue to the further next level, and that was the reason why we don't have a sharp melting point in the case of this amorphous solids. Are we clear with this? Right. Now let's look about the classification of solids. So basing on this particular structures, we have just seen about the crystalline and amorphous solids, right? Now let's classify the solids basing on electrical properties, which is more important. Regarding the different various other properties we have seen here, so let us consider the other properties, which is like basing on the electrical conductivity. We will consider this. Okay, so how can we classify the solids? Remember, I am telling again, this classification of solids is basing on electrical properties. Electrical properties. So as you are very familiar with this, and in the current electricity also we have studied about this. So solids can be classified into three categories. The first one is conductors, second one is semiconductors. Regarding this alone we are going to study in the furthermore in this chapter. The third one is insulators. Regarding these two, conductors and insulators, we have already studied earlier in this. Just let's have a brief introduction or brief discussion about this conductors and insulators. What are the conductors? Substances which easily allow the electric current through them are called conductors, like gold, silver. All these are some other metals like copper, aluminum, all the metals, right? So all these are examples, or simply let's write down metals are said to be called as conductors. They allow the electric current to flow through them. And coming to the properties, they have high electrical conductivity and thermal conductivity. Keep that in mind. So conductors have high thermal conductivity and electrical conductivity. Conductors have positive temperature coefficient of resistance, that means alpha. Do you remember this in the current electricity? So current we have studied already. Conductors have positive temperature coefficient of resistance, that means with increase in temperature, resistance of the conductor increases. T increases, R increases, that implies. So that's what alpha is. Alpha is positive, that is as temperature increases, resistance of the conductors increases. Are we clear with this, ma? Right. Now let's look about the insulators. Wait, we'll come back to the semiconductors later. So let me finish this insulators also, because very well known, right, for us. So what are insulators? Substances which do not allow the electrical current through them are called insulators. And the examples we can give it like glass, wood, mica, etc. Can we? Okay, examples: glass, wood, etc. we can give, isn't it or not? Now coming to the temperature coefficient of resistance, they have negative. Alpha is negative. Alpha is negative, which means insulators have high resistivity and low electrical conductivity. Remember this. And as the temperature increases, resistance decreases. That is, temperature increase in temperature, that means reduces the resistance. So as temperature increases, resistance decreases. And insulators have high resistivity and low electrical conductivity. All this we have already studied in a current electricity chapter. Just I am giving the brief introduction regarding this. Now coming to the third category, semiconductors. Look here. So these are this kind of the materials doesn't falls either in the case of insulators or in the case of the conductors. Look here, we are calling it as conductors. but not as like insulators. Are you getting the point here? We are not calling them to be like semi insulators, so we are calling it as semiconductors. The reason is, so because of a little manifestation of this particular material what we are having, we can convert this third kind of the material to be like a conductor. And let's look about what is that manifestation and what we have to. So these substances, the electrical properties will lie between conductors and insulators are called semiconductors. So that's why I have mentioned in between. So their properties will be like in between the conductors and insulators. Are we clear with this? And some of the examples are like germanium and silicon. Examples are germanium and silicon are the best examples for this. Let's discuss about the properties also. The resistivity of these semiconductors is higher than that of conductors but lower than that of the insulators. Resistivity of semiconductors is higher than the conductors but lower than the insulators. Shall I mention resistivity, right? So resistivity of the semiconductors is greater than, is higher than, or you can call it as is higher than the conductors but lower than the insulators. Can I write down? Can we write down this? Are you getting the point here? Right. Next one, they have negative temperature coefficient of resistance. So alpha is negative for them. Same again for this, which means the electrical resistance of a semiconductor decreases with increase in temperature. Have you listened about this particular property anywhere? Do you remember the photovoltaic cell in the dual nature of radiation and matter? We have discussed after the photoelectric effect applications. Yes, that's what now we are going to discuss about. At the end we have regarding the solar cell, there we'll discuss about this again. And coming to the next one, the electrical conductivity of a semiconductor can be increased by adding a small amount of suitable impurity, and that's what we call it as doping. Conductivity sigma, which is nothing but conductivity, can be increased if doped. Regarding the doping, we'll discuss later in the extrinsic semiconductors and all. We have a separate topic, there we'll discuss. Doping refers to adding small impurity. Impurity doesn't means that we are adding something trash or something to this. It's not means impurity. Impurity refers to, if let's say suppose we have X atom or element, if we add some other like some Z I have added to this X, that resultant is nothing but the resultant material. So anyway, later we have a clear discussion. That is what adding impurities refers to. Impurity means the foreign elements or the the other elements other than the nature of this one, the other kind of the materials or the atoms if we add, we call that to be like doping, and that's what we are going to discuss about later. Anyway, we have the topic doping, and there we will discuss about this. Are we clear with this? Right. Now let's look about the next one, band theory of solids. First of all, let us understand the term band. Let's look about that term band refers to. In the case of a single isolated atom, when we have a single isolated atom, there are we can have discrete energy levels, right? Like 1s, 2s, 2p, 3s, and so on. And that can be occupied by the electrons of an atom. Those 1s, 2s, 2p we is to mention, right? So the electron will occupy in this. Let me draw that so that it will be clear for you. So let's say suppose these are the various different energy levels. So 1s, 2s, 2p, and let's say suppose this is 3s. Remember, this is for isolated atom. Isolated atom. This is for this. And now, as isolated atoms are brought close together to form a solid. That's it, right? This is an isolated atom, and if we brought one more isolated atom close to this each other, then obviously a solid will form, and various interaction occurs between the neighboring atoms. That's obvious. As a result of this interaction, the higher energy levels are considerably affected. The higher energy levels are considerably affected, which means the energy levels of the outer shell are slightly altered without violating the Pauli's exclusion principle. without violating the Pauli's exclusion principle. Hope you know the Pauli's exclusion principle. Okay, so without violating that, the energy levels will be further split over there, and they will split with split here, and there will be this splitting of a single energy level of an isolated atom into a large number of energy levels, which we can see here. Let me draw that. See here, I am considering the low energy levels I am not disturbing. 2p. So now this 3s, which is the highest of, this will become a closely spaced energy levels. Are you getting the point here? Okay, and this is called, in the higher energy state we are having two different states. The lower energy level is called valence band. Let me tell you the band so that you will understand. And these higher energy levels are called conduction band. Conduction band, and this energy difference what we are actually having between these two higher energy levels is called forbidden energy gap, or simply you can call it as energy gap. Forbidden energy gap, or you can simply call it as energy gap, which will be in the form of electron volts in the order of. So do you understand, right? So when we have an isolated atom and when we brought another isolated atom close to each other, these high energy levels which are having for the isolated atom will interact with each other, and thus this high energy level will split up into furthermore many levels within that, and this splitting is with according to the Pauli's exclusion principle, and here there are, and these energy bands or these energy levels at the lower stage are called valence band, and in the higher stage are called conduction band, and the energy difference between them is said to be called as forbidden energy gap. Are you getting the point here? And now let's define what is a band. A closely spaced energy levels into which the discrete energy level splits into during the interaction is nothing but energy band. Closely spaced energy bands. Band, let's define this. Closely spaced energy levels. Closely spaced energy levels during the interaction. Closely spaced energy levels during the interaction, which is nothing but whenever the isolated atom interacts with another, so there will be splitting, right? So in the splitting, in this split, 1 3s has been divided into, look here, can you notice here how many energy levels are, and these are all nothing but the bands, various bands having kind. So those closely spaced energy levels are called bands, or simply for a single level is said to be called as band. And in that, the energy band occupied by the valence electrons of all the atoms of a solid is known as valence band, and that was actually the low energy level. So valence band VB is nothing but band occupied by valence electrons. Band occupied by valence electrons is nothing but valence band. Are you getting the point here? Okay ma, right. And remember, this valence band represents the range of energies possessed by the valence electrons of all the atoms in the solid, and this may be either completely filled or partially filled. That's again a different task, because the valence band, whatever, it can be completely filled or half filled. Are you getting the point here? So that, which means this valence band represents the various energy levels of all this kind of. Coming to the next one, the higher level of, which is nothing but conduction band. A conduction band is nothing but energy band occupied by the free electrons in a solid, which is nothing but. Hope you understand what is the difference between valence electron and free electron. You know that, right? So valence electron is bound to that, while free electron is came out of that. So that was, so band occupied by free electrons. Band occupied by free electrons is nothing but this valence conduction band. Are we clear with this? And coming to the properties, this conduction band represents the energies possessed by the free electrons, and this may be partially filled or empty. This band can be partially filled or it can be empty. So are we clear with this? And look at the forbidden energy gap. Let us define that also. A forbidden energy level is nothing but the difference of the energy between lowest level of the conduction band and highest level of valence band. Have you noticed this? Out of all this energy, various energy levels in conduction band, this is the lowest. So, and out of all the various energy levels in valence band, this is the highest. So, forbidden energy gap can be defined as the difference of the energy between the difference of the energy levels between lowest level of conduction band and highest level of the valence band. Are we clear with this? So that was forbidden energy gap, which is nothing but the energy difference between these two states is nothing but forbidden energy gap. Are we clear with this? Okay, ma? Right. Now let's look about the category classification, which is nothing but insulators, semiconductors and conductors. Basing on this energy band gap and all, here we will speak about this. So let's start from the conductors. Let's look at the comparison of all the three: conductors, semiconductors, insulators, basing on the energy bands and as well as the various other properties too. So look at the first one, conductors. In the conductors, valence band and conduction band overlap with each other. That's it, right? Because whatever the electron in the valence band, because of the energy supplement, they obviously will move to the conduction band immediately. That's why they will overlap. There won't be any pass or there won't be any gap. That was immediately there will be a conduction. And the energy band gap, as they overlap, you can call that to be as the forbidden energy gap will be in the 0 electron volt. And at the room temperature, the conductivity of conductors is high. That's obvious, and you can represent the band energies to be like this, overlapping. This is the region of overlapping. Here it is. Coming to the semiconductors, valence band and conduction band are separated. They will be separated with a very small energy gap. And the order of the forbidden energy gap will be in the order of 1 electron volt, and at the room temperature the conductivity of semiconductors is intermediate. You can't say that it is not at all conducting, and you can say that it is conducting. No, neither is true. It will be in the intermediate region, and that was the reason why we are actually doping them. Later we will understand this, okay, in order to increase the conductivity. And if this is the representation, conduction band, valence band, you can notice there valence band is almost full while conduction band is almost empty, because the conductivity is intermediate, right? So conduction band is almost empty while valence band is almost full. Coming to the insulators, valence band and conduction band are largely separated because they don't conduct, right? So that was, even though you supply the energy, it can't overcome this energy band gap and it doesn't enter into the conduction band for the conduction process. So they won't. And the order of the energy gap will be in the order of 6 electron volt, and at room temperature there won't be any conductivity at all, and this is what the energy band gap for this. And you can notice here valence band, in the case of insulators, you can see that valence band is completely filled. Valence band is completely filled. Of course, I'll mention this. And remember, these are electrons, these dots, whatever I am writing. In the valence band, it is completely full, and conduction band is completely empty. You can say that completely in the conduction band there are no electrons. While remember, in the semiconductors we said that it is almost, while in the case of insulators it is completely. Hope you understand this difference, and that's why we are calling it as semiconductors. Are you getting the point here? Are we clear with this, ma? So now we will go for the further classification and as well as the further deep into the types of the semiconductors once if we are very clear enough with this. Are we getting the point here? And remember, in the case of insulators, let me give a brief introduction so that it will be clear for you in the next topic. In the case of insulators, due to large forbidden energy gap, electrons cannot jump from valence band to the conduction band. You can notice there. And in the case of conductors, as they are overlapping with each other, the electron in valence band can easily enter into the conduction band. So a slight potential difference across the conductor causes the electron to give the electric current. That's obviously. Look here, in the case of semiconductor, the forbidden energy gap is very small. Is very small, isn't it or not? We cannot say that it is completely zero. or you cannot say that it is very large, it is very small enough. And in the case of semiconductors, at 0 Kelvin there are no electrons in the conduction band and the valence band is completely filled with electrons, so they behave as insulators at 0 Kelvin. When a small amount of energy is supplied, the electrons can easily jump from valence band to the conduction band. So later anyway we will have that discussion regarding the topic. So there regarding the temperatures and all also we can discuss. Anyway, regarding the temperature coefficient of resistance, we have already seen that, right? Alpha is negative for them, so that was the condition also here. Okay, are we clear with this? So now we can discuss later in the next session regarding this particular kinds of the semiconductors we have. Okay.